Hey folks, I want to do another video on one of these explications, I guess, breaking down one of these police-induced media frenzies over a number of people who in the Indiana, Illinois area were caught up in a sting. I previously worked with one of these individuals telling his story, and it's pretty raw. I told the story. I'll try to post that link under here, but it's notable for a couple of things. Number one, it's notable because you have to wonder, what motivates these people, to do some of the things that they do. But before you get too far down that road, because there's, complexities, there's addiction, there's interest, there is loneliness in marriages and relationships, there's drug addiction, there is, of course, a history of abuse. But there's also this understanding among young men and older men in my age category who are divorced, they're estranged from families, and sometimes they reach out in inappropriate ways. Now, having said that, it's also fair to look at the other side of it, which is the police. What are the police doing that are never talked about in these videos that we have uncovered as victims of police stings when we've done our own investigation and we've looked at it in a very meaningful way? So I want to share with you a screen here of one of these cases that, again, I've done before. And this is one right here. This is, I think, out of Fox News, Fox 59, 12 suspected online predators busted. Okay. So right away in the heading, of course, you are told that they are online predators. The only word that jumps out to you is the word predators, secondarily online suspected. You kind of ignore, as many people do. And this is in Clinton County, which is in central Indiana, I believe, if memory serves. So they did an 18-month investigation, the Clinton County Sheriff's Office using I.C.A.C resources, and they went undercover on a popular social media site. Now, nobody has anything about undercover problems with that. We want police to have undercover exposure, but what we don't want police to do is to act unlawfully. And there's a number of hints throughout this. Uh, Unfortunately, when we have reached out to these media outlets, they never ever get around to asking the tough questions that you would want in a democracy. Out in Washington, D.C., and in some other places around here, they have an initiative called C-COPS. That's double C, CCOPS. And what it refers to, without me remembering exactly what the acronym is, it refers to democratic policing. If a police force wants to do something like this, they should go to the local city council, county commission, county board of whatever you call it in your particular community and say, this is what we want to do. And this is why we want to do it. It does a couple of things. It allows people who might not hurt children to think twice about going on here. Of course, predator hunters and others will say, well, this just tips off everybody. But according to them, there's fresh predator victims all the time, adults who would prey on kids. So what are they worried about? But what it does is it allows the public also to know what's going on in these things. It allows people to ask questions. It allows the public sitting in the audience to ask questions. And that's exactly what the police don't want. They don't want their methods, as they say, sources and methods to be revealed, which is kind of too cute by half, because what it also does is allow them to hide what they're doing illegally to entrap people. So it starts out with this ridiculous thing. Okay, so they're on undercover on popular social media sites to unmask people willing to exploit kids. That's a curious way of saying it. Willing to exploit kids. Are they willing because they've had inducements? Are they looking for children right off the bat? Because interestingly enough, in hundreds of these cases we've looked at, there's nobody who says, hey, I'm on this adult site. Where are you? Where are the kids? Hey, how old are you? 18? Are you really 15? Are you really 16? Those conversations rarely, if ever, take place. And of course, you never hear about them. Okay. You never hear too much about those cases. And we know from research that there's less than 5% of the traffic on these sites at a maximum are children who are pretending to be adults. This is the most idiotic statement of the article. A detective says these were people that looked normal in a lot of ways, which is kind of disturbing. Not only is the syntax disturbing of this, I guess their look of normal is disturbing, but the actual idiocy of the statement is that people come in all shapes and sizes, and unless you're a mind reader, you don't know what they're up to, and that includes cops. I'm going to share another video here shortly where I go dig down into that and remind us a little bit of how the registry is unuseful and not helpful at all. Certainly, the registry didn't help uncover any of these folks, and we know from the patterns that has been revealed from me talking to a couple of these guys that it is not exactly what the police said it was, right? So, of course, they go through, well, these are government engineers, government employees, the normal people that Detective Griner wants to comment about. And they were looking for 14-year-old girls, but they're really chatting with an undercover cop. Stop right there. We know that police are approaching them when they have not indicated any interest in children, and the police are hitting them up, and they even do recon missions, as I've shown on this channel, where police pretend that they're normal just subscribers and they're on all sorts of platforms, including Kick and Reddit, where they are talking to people. And by the way, I'm not on Kick or Reddit. I've been showed these things by other people who were. Okay. And they have explained to me exactly what they're doing and showed me the evidence of it. Okay. So the question is, what were the police doing too? I want to know this, but I want to know what the police are doing also. Okay. There's a lot of pressure for kids to be friendly with people they've never met. A lot of pressure? I don't know about that. Kids are online like everybody else. They have online friends. This is good in a way for the autistic and the intellectually disabled also if police weren't there, perfectly willing to destroy their lives and interfere with the limited intellectual capacity that they have. They're still in prison, many of these people, for crimes they didn't even understand what was going on with. That's also true. But you'll never hear that in an article like this. Detective Griner is one of the investigators behind the keyboard. This is the genius who mentioned about normal people. He said the operation launched after tracking an uptick in reports of kids getting exploited online. What are those reports? Well, very often you find they're from NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And what these are, they get something like million, I don't know, a million complaints, I can't remember now, of which they end up investigating less than 1% of these cases. All right. So many of these cases, and of that 1% that they have capacity to deal with, many of those get tossed out because of false flags. They're nosy neighbors. They're people who thought they understood something, but they didn't. Guys, we really need critical thinking in our schools. If you're a teacher watching this, please work on critical thinking. Because people think they see things all the time and they're not seeing it. And other things that they think they are just fine are actually very troubling. During one conversation, a suspect messaged, "Your foster parents might not like us being together." Talked about offering to do math homework followed by making love afterwards. Folks, I don't doubt this for a minute. But what I want to see listed in these articles are what the police did. How are we ever going to get an understanding of what really is going on and where the real bad eggs are and where the people who are simply induced into doing something that they would not have done on their own are also? When are we going to see both of these? Because that's what we need to do. I have shown on my channel any number of times where police are the ones first to bring up sex. They're the ones first approaching. They're the ones entrapping. They're the ones saying, my persona, oh, I know I said I'm a 16-year-old girl, but I'm really a 40-year-old mom, and my daughter's 16. She wants to learn about sex, and I don't have a man in my life. And it would be so great if you would teach us both. Well, I'm not interested. I only want you. Well, if you don't want my daughter, you're not going to get me either. And then you get people capitulating. Is it in every case? No. No, no, no. Because as we discuss, many of these are fantasies online that police massage until the person does something, okay? That they didn't always intend to do something. And that's lost in this conversation, okay? I mean, I've discovered this just in my case where I wasn't doing anything like that at all. And again, I'm going to eventually, find all the files that I need to. I did great work on that yesterday, by the way, pulling a bunch of stuff that the police had pushed behind a file cabinet that I had found when they hastily put things back in my house. So. Once a suspect makes plans to meet up with the investigator's profile, he finds himself uh, caught and put in handcuffs, right? He said he called the onslaught of attention his teen profile received as overwhelming, so much that they needed to slow down their caseload and limit their focus on predators. Well, two questions on that. Again, I want to see what the police did in their who started the conversation, who initiated it. What did the police say early on? Because we're finding out they're the first to bring up sex. Now, that doesn't excuse, obviously, the people who picked it up and said yes, yes, yes. But it does bring up the question of why we're allowing police to do this to begin with when they must be concerned that they're doing something wrong because over and over again they testify, we didn't do anything. We just sat back like this and waited for something to happen, which is a lie, a terrible lie. That's not what they do at all. Okay. So, but it's interesting also, what are we doing to help these people get some kind of help? Are we actually helping people? It's funny, I've been attacked by vigilantes on here, and I mentioned a comment that I've had three psychosexual evaluations ordered by the Department of Corrections when I was in their custody and during probation that's still in custody. And in these cases, it's curious because the reason three is because they weren't satisfied with each one. They kept thinking it was going to reveal something. And when I questioned their findings, and I did it in writing as well as orally, they said, well, we must be right because you were convicted. So you have this circular logic. Maybe I was convicted incorrectly. Oh no, the court doesn't make mistakes. And it's funny, I tell the story about how I was in jail watching TV one day, and there was a person who in Virginia here who was given $1.2 million because he spent 20 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. He was falsely convicted. And all the fellow jailbirds were saying, yeah, it's great. He got 1.2 million. And I turned to one of the guys, I said, that's nothing. That's nothing. What about the opportunity cost that they robbed him of? As they robbed me because they took away my teacher's pension, which I earned, by the way. I earned, regardless of what you think I may or may have not have done, I earned it. Okay, so you go down here, all these 12 men trying to uh, caught trying to solicit a child. Griner said very few had any criminal history, and only one was a sex offender. Right there, that's a tell. So now you created criminal histories for them. And now I really want to know what the police were doing. I want to know what they said. Who initiated the conversation? How did it unfold? That's what I want to know. In messaging, he discovered that one lived just down the road from him, and only one was known as a sex offender. So, you folks who are saying that the sex offender registry is the greatest thing since sliced bread and reveals all these people, it doesn't. It doesn't. Over and over again, it doesn't. There's only one person. And by the way, we need to find out what was the sex offense. Because in some states, you can be a murderer and be on the sex offender registry because it's a registry and they want to put you on a list and they don't have one, so they put murderers on there as well. sometimes. It's shocking to me. It was shocking to my wife, shocking to the community. It's shocking to me too because I want to know the other half of the story. Because we keep hearing reports about this. It's in many of our histories. We have anecdotal, we have people said, this is what the police did. Look what they did. And then they go to get the discovery, and all the police decoy information's gone. They're lost. It's corrupted. We can't find it, Your Honor. I'm not sure what happened, but we had a glitch in our system. We had a hack. It's amazing how incompetent they are with the evidence when the evidence would show something other than what they told the court. So their mission now, according to the sheriff's office, is to educate parents about popular platforms. I think we should. But I think to be fair, we also need to educate parents, especially parents of vulnerable teens who are suicidal, who have suicidal ideation, who are lonely and reaching out to other people like a number of people like Alicia and Alicia of Alicia's project, although I'll certainly have something to say about her and her boyfriend in a upcoming video. But maybe the intellectually disabled, we should have something to say about them too, because they are at risk from these police officers. Not so much from the predators, supposedly, but from predator police officers who are ginning up these decoys in order to create a problem that may or may not be the case. Again, how will we know if we don't actually put all our cards on the table? I've said it now for years, and all I do is I get attacked for it. Okay, here we go. According to police, investigation unraveled concerning fantasies. Okay, well, how much do the police push these same fantasies with the decoy? We have evidence that they are the ones that are very often pushing fantasies of sex with children. I talked about the first time I started investigating these cases in 2018. One of the first articles I ran into was a New York Times article. And this Times article, it was a pleading from the NYPD upper brass to their rank and file police officers on the street. Please stop putting videos out and profiles on teen dating sites trying to get teens to have sex with you. Please, they would deliberately, overtly, right, in your face, trying to have sex with teens. Okay. And again, folks, the planet is filled with people who were teens who had sex when they were 14, 15, 16. And as I've said again, we need to have an honest discussion about what's going on here at every level and separate people who would harm children from other types of sexual exploration and fantasy, particularly. Okay? Because these are the same police that are dealing with the Romeo and Juliet cases where, as I've said before, somebody who's 17 turns 18 and they are charged with child pornography because of their relationship with their 16-year-old girlfriend or boyfriend. All right? And again, if this is such a big deal, we have the issue of Caitlin Grimley and others in there. And again, all I'm suggesting is that we look at it in a different way. Okay. I love this one right here. Some were busted bringing narcotics or other objects not meant for kids. Well, guess what the police do in some of their stings, folks? They ask these people to bring things. Okay, so they're pimping an underage decoy after first impersonating and pimping an adult decoy. Then they switch it. Then they start asking for things. And then they say, gee, well, look at these perverse people bringing all these things that we asked them to bring. All right, they never mention those things. And again, why are you inducing people to do things? Well, you get the person to bring the evidence for you. But don't think that that necessarily does it because there are many of us who traveled to a particular place under not circumstances they're talking about. There was nothing. Nothing. In my case, nothing in my car, nothing on my person, nothing in my home, nothing on my devices, and I still got convicted. There are people who walk away from these conversations, folks, who say, just fantasizing, moving on, and they are approached up to 4 years later at their home and arrested for these because the police don't care. It's not about protecting kids, it's about ginning up statistics. And you do have to understand that, right? They're talking about other things that cops say to potentially induce. Okay. Now, it's interesting that they put this operation on pause, which is good news. I'm not quite sure why they did. Maybe because they have to deal with the capacity that they have created here or that they have encountered. To be fair, again, trying to be fair to both sides. But again, we don't get the fairness, we get the stigma. So just remember that. All I'm asking is check into this because when we do, what we find out is very different than what the police say. Okay. Check, have honest conversations with your kids, check their internet history, and not hesitate to call police. Well, I would certainly hesitate to call police because you may think that there is something not wrong, and there is. On the other hand, you may think that there is something wrong, and the police will make it into a much bigger issue than it is. Remember, police are there to gin up the statistics too. You don't necessarily know the predatory behavior. Better to talk to your children and make sure they understand what they're doing and make sure that you are simply involved in their life. Studies show that when a parent is involved in their children's lives, this helps kids so much deal with day-to-day stuff. And if you're a loving parent, if you're respectful, if you find out you have an LGBTQ child, you know get help yourself if you don't know how to deal with it, but for God's sakes, do not hammer your child. This helps absolutely nobody, and it actually pushes children more toward the so-called predatory behavior. Okay. And you really have to watch that. And so many parents just simply don't. It's a simple formula. Get involved in your kids' lives, be part of their lives, help them get healthy activities so that they are not injured along the way, or physically, mentally, emotionally, or otherwise. You have what's this group called 763 or something like that? That tries to befriend kids befriending other kids online and pushing them to self-harm. First, building their self-esteem, gaining their trust, and destroying their self-esteem and getting them to commit suicide. So, yeah, there's a lot of predatory behavior online that they have to understand, including that of the police, particularly if you're dealing with a vulnerable youth who's intellectually disabled, for example. Okay. So, I'm not sure that you rush to the police, is what I'm saying. You have to use some of your own judgment and figure out what's really going on before you involve the police, is what I'm really trying to say. Excuse me. And this is a list of people here on here. So I hope pardon me, I hope that was helpful. Please hit me back if you have any questions or if you think that we should not contact police. But folks, again, what I'm going to get are people calling me names and not suggesting at all that the police would be in any way part of the problem instead of part of the solution. Hit me back. Let me know what you think. This is I.C.A.C. Unpacked. Have a good day.